On the morning of April 16th, 2014, a massive ferry named Sewol was sinking near the shore of South Korea with 476 people inside. Early in the incident, all the news channels reported everyone is saved, praising the government for its prompt reaction.
정말 다행입니다. 다행스럽다는 소식 전해드리면서 계속 얘기를 이어가도록 하겠습니다.
Hours later, it turns out to be a misreport which caused critical confusion during the rescue. Fishing boats that were near the site of the accident actually rescued more people than the Coast Guard did. While more than 300 people, mostly high school kids, were still inside of the sinking ship, the state decided to relegate the rescue operation to a private salvage firm. Then, the press fabricated rescue missions that were not really happening.
사람이 살아있다고 가tuk이 왔대. 빨리 구해줘 좀.
Report Bureau Chief of KBS quit his job, denunciating the pressure on reports from the Blue House. After the rescue mission was handed over to Undin, not a single person came back alive. The investigation by the National Assembly crumbled, just right after it scratched the surface so a more complicated picture could emerge. As families of victims demanded truth, the government reared its menacing head by deploying its forces to silence them and mobilizing its resources to hide its responsibility. The first page of papers and prime time of news on TV started to be filled with embarrassing personal histories of victims' families. President Park Geun-hye's public promise to get to the bottom of the accident lost its meaning.
I don't understand why the Korean government didn't allow or didn't support a full impartial investigation after this tragedy happened. The real tragedy is that it was full of ordinary citizens, and most of them were children, school children. I think if this had happened in the US, Americans would be so outraged that the government would not be able to escape if they had tried to participate in some sort of cover-up or had tried to put out propaganda.
How would you comment on the South Korean press these days?
It's worrisome to me, or to any Westerner, but I think the ultimate responsibility lies with the public. If they want a free press, they're going to have to demand it.
The Federal Communications Commission, or FCC's, right to evaluate broadcasters' performance in serving the public interest, convenience, and necessity had been hindered with the coming of deregulation during the Reagan administration. President Reagan's FCC chair, Mark Fowler, rejected the trustee model of broadcast regulation. He argued that special rules for the control of broadcasting were unnecessary, likening television, for example, to just another home appliance. The first FCC chair under President George W. Bush, Michael Powell, was also a strong advocate of deregulation. In a press conference, he called regulation of telecommunications the oppressor. He also made persistent efforts to relax regulations against cross-ownership of media in 2003. Thankfully, that was rejected by our Senate, but it was Korean press that used Michael Powell's attempt to ease their media ownership rule without telling people that the plan was disapproved in the United States. In Korea, 3 major newspapers that are already holding over 60% of the market lobbied their way through regulations in 2009 and started owning television channels. Those channels became monstrous and began narrowing down the voices over public matters. It took a mere 2 years for Korea to plummet in press freedom rankings by Journalists Without Borders from 30th to 68th, the vicious circle has an unstoppable momentum in Korea now. The vicious circle of politicians incapacitating laws in favor of major media, and major media bringing up or covering up their Muppets.
Only 14% of the population in the world enjoys free press, which means robust coverage of political news, ensured safety of journalists, and minimal intrusion by the state on media affairs. Now, the U.S. has also experienced some decline in rankings over the past few years, particularly after 9/11. High-level officials have been less willing to provide access and information to journalists. The judiciary has made an effort to force journalists on certain occasions to reveal their sources. There is still a lack of federal laws to protect the sources. And in addition to that, the economy of the news industry has weakened the media diversity that we experience. Now, our perception of the Korean press is that their cooperation with government or their willingness to be suppressed by the government is very disturbing. Hopefully, it's a warning to us, and to Koreans as well, that we can't allow government to overstep its bounds. We have to take responsibility and remain aware.
James Rison is a reporter for the New York Times who broke into the NSA's secret wiretapping program that monitored Americans without warrants. He revealed that there has been pressure from the White House to kill the story, and he himself is on the verge of going to jail for it. Mr. Rison expressed how he was hopeful that his circumstances would change with Obama being elected, but that didn't seem to be the case. He said it actually got worse since Obama was in office. That being said, it feels like it's more of a systematic problem than just a trend of a single administration. What are your thoughts on this?
I think there's always a push-pull between any administration, liberal or conservative, and the press, especially if a reporter, a journalist, uncovers information that's potentially embarrassing to the government. Sometimes the government is not even totally aware of the depth of a problem. So we're not surprised by this, we expect it. But we have to pay close attention to the attempts by our government to punish journalists for doing really what is their job on our behalf, on the public's behalf. That's a sign that something is being withheld from us, and it's our responsibility to seek out the truth.
Do you think that there's a chance we might go down the same path as South Korea? What is your concerns?
Obviously, a more conservative government would be more inclined to relax regulations in business, and that's historically true in this country as well. But whatever kind of administration we have, liberal or conservative, we still have to be a little concerned about the concentration of media ownership. Because if you have fewer and fewer companies, there's going to be less variety of content and perhaps lesser quality. And that includes news reporting. Likewise, when media companies become parts of large conglomerates, they are focused mostly on the bottom line, on profit, and there's no way we can be guaranteed that there will be unbiased information coming to us, particularly in newscasts, or whether that is even possible. My optimism, though, comes from the indomitable spirit of Americans. We believe we have the right of having a free press and being free to express ourselves. The challenge, as I see it, is to educate the coming generations about this really precious legacy we've had since the institution of this country. More important than ever, we need to be media literate. And remember that it's up to us to demand these freedoms.
Under the misrepresented social council and loosened regulations, had mass media been fair? Had they kept commercial time to acceptable levels? What was their commitment to news and public affairs? What are the fruits of deregulation as concentration, conglomeration, over-commercialization, and lowering of decency standards, and the debasement of news? And also, Are the mass media free from the impure intentions of those who seek to use them as tools for gaining and protecting their power? Well, let's take it from President Park Geun-hye's speech, asking to pass the law requiring the Broadcasting and Communication Commission to hand over cable television SO and IPTV over to the government.
일부에서 주장하는 방송 장악은 그것을 할 의도도 전혀 없고 법적으로도 불가능합니다.